Well, it's Friday the 6th of December. Jupiter is now in Capricorn for the next year, meaning that for the next 12 months, the big dreams and plans of Jupiter will have to be paid for with graft and effort. We are literally in perfect is the enemy of good space weather, and I couldn't be happier about it. This is episode 1936 of 301 Permanently Moved Online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited in 1 hour by me at the JMO. A bit of a fragmentary episode this week, I'm afraid. My brain is fried. But here's some thoughts that I got down inside the hour. 1. I wanted to say a big thank you to my friend Andrew Dana Hudson for guest hosting last episode of Permanently Moved whilst I was in Manchester with Eve. It was great, and I'm really intrigued by the arm raising exercise. I'd like to participate in one as part of a group sometime next year, I think. 2. I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone that shared and contacted me about episode 1934, the show that I did outside on the sea wall about depression and language. It seemed to strike a chord with people. One note I received was on the format of the episode, the way I fused the A-B structure of the show together. The first being a description of the sea and the waves, and then talking about depression and needing better words for our experiences. And I also agree that it could only have worked in audio, as the atmosphere of the waves held it all together. I think I'm getting better at making this podcast, slowly, and I've made 65 episodes so far, but I'm learning something new every single week. I think if that episode was ever to find its way into my zine, Start Select Reset, I'd need to put quite a bit of effort into the layout of the text and how it's presented to make it work. 3. In other news, I forgot to mention back in early November that I have completely rebuilt my website at thejmo.net and have ported my blog archives back to 2012 onto it as well. I blog at least once a week in a week notes format and occasionally post and write other things on there too. Probably more of that next year in addition to the week notes posts. Anyway, go subscribe via RSS if you want. It's important to build out and curate your own feeds. 4. You are probably aware that the most important election for a generation is currently underway in the UK. And I'm working all night of the results, so there may or may not be an episode next Friday. If there isn't, then I'll make it on Saturday. I've been manning an extremely left-wing Twitter account with about 100,000 followers for the last little bit. It's been a real insight into the ebbs and flows of Twitter, a platform that I thought I knew pretty well. But what I've realised is when you get to that level of visibility or gravity as a node in the network, the toxicity of that space becomes even more obvious. Whilst I do think talentless communist fan page is a great put down, I also think that social media managers of all kinds should get danger pay. I can't even begin to imagine what it is like to simply be a woman or marginalised voice on a social platform on the internet. Some of the shit that gets tweeted and the volume of it is just depressing. Having been on the receiving end of right-wing abuse all week, the experience has raised a few questions in my mind about filter bubbles and what we do about them. Gordon White wrote the other week over on runesnoot.com that, quote, filter bubbles are when you exist in a mostly digital ecosystem where only news that you already agree with or already believe to be true manages to reach you. This is only one half of what constitutes a filter bubble. The other half, and I mean half of what reaches you, is the worst possible examples of opinions that you don't agree with. Gun laws, climate change, freedom of speech, wherever you land on them, you will only see the worst examples of the opposite opinion. End quote. It's that other half, what's on the outside of the filter bubble, that algorithmic feeds have got so good at inserting into your own reality to boost engagement and warp our realities. Having had this TweetDeck experience, I'm even more interested in how individuals, friends and acquaintances personally navigate their network visibility now than I was before. As you all know, if you've been listening to this for a while, navigating online platforms, being against Walden ponding, FOBO or fear of being ordinary, against news or infotainment are all topics that I collected together in my zine, Your Attention is Sovereign. I think it would be interesting to speak to people I know and find out how other people are trying to navigate this new reality. Social media theorizing was super popular earlier this decade, but it has kind of dropped off and become far more academic in its presentation. And the corrective is, as ever, one of the reasons why I think there should be a return to blogging. More longer considered viewpoints, less hot takes. I actually know someone that's too famous to work at Starbucks, but not famous enough to support themselves through their network. They told me once that it feels like they haul all 500,000 YouTube subscribers into a job interview with them, and it's a massive elephant in the room. They don't see why they should have to bring up what they do in their personal lives in an interview, or somehow quote-unquote warn a future employer or whatever. And I agree with them. You shouldn't have to. 5. I have a long list of ideas that I'd like to work on and get done next year creatively. I really need to sit down, reflect and decide on what and where my priorities are, as this year has been all over the place. I think I'll do an end of year review and look ahead in 2 weeks' time, and then I'll take a break, ready for episode 2001 next year. Peace.